fun to look around the audience. Several of you people in the audience have been affiliated with Cinnamon and Cinnulin PF, not longer than I have, because I think I started it over 20 years ago. But one of our postdocs is here, Lincoln Barrio, was with me in what year? 20 years ago or more, anyway. But anyway, what I'd like to talk about today is the effect of Cinnulin PF, beneficial effects on glucose, insulin, and lipids. And really, I hope that convince you by the time we're done that Cinnulin PF actually works. This is one of our first experiments when we started with the cinnamon, and we were actually doing a study on feeding a low chromium diet. And one of the foods in the low chromium diet was apple pie. And if you look on the list here, the apple pie is here with very good insulin potentiating activity. And we were sure that the reason apple pie was good was because of the apples, because everybody knows apples are good for you. But look, the apples didn't do anything, and obviously it's the cinnamon that's good. And from that work, we did a number of studies, but this is our first human study that we did, and this is with whole cinnamon. And what we did is we fed people 3 levels of cinnamon, 1 gram, 3 grams, and 6 grams. And to put that in perspective, a gram of cinnamon is a few shakes of cinnamon shaker. And when we did it, like I say, with the 3 levels, all 3 levels work the same. That's why you see a range. And the fasting glucose improved from 18 to 29%, triglycerides 23 to 30, cholesterol 12 to 26. And I should say, even 20 days after stopping the cinnamon, the cholesterol values were still good. And improved the LDL cholesterol 7 to 27%. And there were no significant changes in the placebo. But so then you say, why don't you just use cinnamon? But there's certainly some possible negative effects of cinnamon. There are good things with cinnamon, but there are certainly bad things. And now, if you read anything from Germany, they're very down on coumarin, but now you're supposed to have less than 5 milligrams per day. But it used to be they treated cancer with coumarin, and they would give like 3,000 to 7,000 milligrams of it per day. But at higher levels, you do see some changes in liver enzymes, but there's been no data to show anything other than changes in liver enzymes, nothing derogatory. But there's also cinnamaldehyde in it. The taste and the smell of cinnamon is actually from cinnamaldehyde, but again, cinnamaldehyde is not necessarily a good thing either. And there's also a buildup of proline and glycoproteins. And these proteins, when we did some of our early rat experiments, we could actually lose the effect of the cinnamon. And because the animals become resistant, they build up a glycoprotein, and it binds to the polyphenols, and the polyphenols are the active components. And of course, you can also have an allergic response. And this then is where we got involved with the commercial people. Actually, Tim, who is not here today, Gus, his brother, is here today, but we didn't meet for a few years later. But anyway, he came up and said, you know, we've got a product. We'll make a water extract for you. And like I say, I worked for the Human Nutrition Center at Beltsville, Maryland, and we couldn't make our own extract and market it, or even we'd have difficult time testing it. But one of the things they wanted to do was look at the metabolic syndrome. And obviously this is a perfect group of people to look at, because those are the ones that will respond. What Cinnulin PF does in cinnamon products is make the insulin that we have more effective. Because as you know, in type 2 diabetes, the problem is not too little insulin, it's too much insulin, but the insulin we have isn't effective. And here you see the metabolic syndrome. Somebody was just asking me a few minutes ago, does everybody respond? Only healthy people respond. But certainly, if we look around this room, some of you dudes are pretty healthy. I don't know what kind of diets you're eating, but you're still probably going to respond to Cinnulin PF. Because like I say, it makes, when we do animal studies, even changing the diet a little bit, will get from going from no response to Cinnulin PF to a very nice response. And I also have on here Alzheimer's disease is also called type 3 diabetes now, but what Alzheimer's disease is diabetes of the brain. So if you improve your insulin sensitivity, which is what the Cinnulin PF does, you'll see an improvement in Alzheimer's as well. And this is the study that actually came out of the first one that we're talking about. Testing Cinnulin PF improves metabolic syndrome. And if you look on here, it's very nice improvement in fasting blood glucose, systolic blood pressure, even percent body fat and lean body mass. So basically we can take people and improve their body composition, get them all looking like the bodybuilders around here. Probably not quite that well. They have to do something more than take Cinnulin PF, but it should help. And here is another study we did looking at the antioxidants. Most of you in this room, you walk around the room and you hear antioxidant, antioxidant, antioxidant. And when we do testing, Cinnulin PF and cinnamon are some of the best antioxidants that are out there. And this again is with people with metabolic syndrome. And you can see that the ferric reducing, which is an antioxidant measure, FRAP it's called, but antioxidant goes up, sulfhydryl groups go up. But look at here, malondialdehyde. Now this is the opposite. This is the effect of the antioxidants. And what they do is they parallel very nicely with the glucose. When the glucose improves, the insulin improves, the antioxidants improves, and you'll see later a number of other factors as well. And here's another study we did in humans. The Cinnulin PF improves, and what we did is we took a group of women with polycystic ovary syndrome, which is basically a disease of reduced insulin sensitivity. They have insulin resistance. And obviously with that, they certainly have a number of health problems, but there's also problems even in becoming pregnant and things. But if you look on here, here's the placebo group, and you can see the baseline in 8 weeks, it actually got worse. But look at the group over here with the Cinnulin PF. Here, this is at 0 time, and after 8 weeks, and now we see a very nice improvement. In fact, when we look at the control, we took a group of control women, and the insulin sensitivity of the control women was no different than these women after they had been on Cinnulin PF for 8 weeks. And here's some animal data. What I hope to show you is some human data, animal data, and in vitro data. And this work here, first author, it was done in my lab, but Dr. Chin is right there. So if you have any questions on this one, he can certainly give you the answers. But the thing is, when you look at this, it's very, very nice because people were just asking what happens on a good diet. Well, if you have a very good diet in rats, when you feed them an optimal diet, and then you give them a high fructose diet, that you can see how much worse they get. And it doesn't make any difference what parameter you're looking at. Glucose, insulin, triglycerides, cholesterol, free fatty acids. The trend is always the same. But look when you put the bad diet, the high fructose diet, plus Cinnulin PF. Now you're getting back not to the level of the control, but close. And sometimes you get to the level of the control, but basically you can't eat a terrible diet, take a little Cinnulin PF and hope that you can totally reverse it. But you can definitely make it better. And in fact, if you look at the statistics, these numbers here, insulin and after the high fructose diet are not significantly different. For adiponectin, as you know, that goes the opposite direction, but again, you see the same trend. And here's another marker. Again, we talk about diabetes, cardiovascular disease. When you look at these are risk factors associated with these diseases. They're basically new markers of insulin resistance. And here again, we look at the control diet, which is an optimal diet. Then you go with the high fructose diet, and you have the Cinnulin PF. It's the same trend. You get it back down close to the control level. Same thing here, same thing here. And this is the active component. We knew the active component, like I say, when we published this several years ago. And this you'll see again and again because it's these type A polyphenols. And the reason they call them type A is because they have this extra linkage here. These are just covalent type Bs, and this is a type A linkage, and that's what's unique to the cinnamon and cinnamon products, Cinnulin PF and its derivatives. And if we look at those, I show you that slide because here's, I think, really a nice study. We're talking about the brain, we're talking about Alzheimer's disease, and with Alzheimer's disease, you have an increase in tau filaments. And if you look at this, this is basically what your brain looks like without Cinnulin PF, the trimers in the cinnamon. This is what it looks like with. Basically, you have no polymers here. And the only difference between here and here are the active components that I just showed you before. And in fact, when you look at it here, this is the trimer. Photo I showed you before, the slide I showed you before was the trimer. This is the tetramer. And everybody thinks, aha, with cinnamon, it's cinnamaldehyde, because that's the major component. Everybody thinks that the active component in cinnamon, which makes it taste and smell, is cinnamaldehyde. But if you look, there's no effect of cinnamaldehyde. In fact, when we first came out with this work, my brother-in-law bought a whole bunch of cinnamon products, but he bought them based on high amounts of cinnamaldehyde. And he was type 2 diabetic. And he tested them, he said, you know, this is a bunch of, won't say whatever, but it didn't work at all. And the reason it didn't work at all is because they were concentrating on this component, not on these components. People didn't know about these components. And here's another study, but just to go quickly, if you look down here, basically, Cinnulin PF does a number of things. And you'll see that even more dramatic. Well, here, this is another area where circadian clock, obesity, diabetes, and cardiovascular disease. And again, these are all linked to insulin resistance. Cinnulin PF has a very nice effect on these. And Cinnulin PF regulates SIRT1, which is key in regulating circadian rhythms. And it's not the only thing that it regulates. When we look at this, this again is SIRT1, SIRT2, and SIRT3. And you can see SIRT1 is involved in insulin sensitivity. SIRT2 maintains cell survival in glioma cells. And SIRT3 is associated in neuron cytotoxic injury. But the point is, improvements in these are good for you. And basically, they're associated with longevity as well. And you can see here, these lighter colors, that's basically saying that you can see beneficial effects. And you can see here, these are at different levels of Cinnulin PF. And here, when I was talking about the many effects of the Cinnulin PF, here's a study. Now this study, essentially everything I've shown you before has been work that we've done when I worked with at the Human Nutrition Center with the U.S. Department of Agriculture. But this is not our work. This is work from another group, but again, it's with Cinnulin PF. And what this shows is the multiple metabolic roles. And if you look at this, if cinnamon has effects on antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, anti-carcinogenic, it probably has many different roles. And if we look at this, the human mammalian cells, but the point is, when they looked at this, they saw 1,136 genes that were upregulated, and they saw 1,338 genes downregulated. The only reason I show that is to show how versatile that the Cinnulin PF is. It has an effect on a number of different things. It's not limited to antioxidant, for example. And here, I didn't know, but you're going to get yogurt today, but this is a combination, physiological effects of a combination of Cinnulin PF with probiotics. And the reason I showed this, not is because I knew they were going to be giving you yogurt over here by that young pretty lady, but if you look at this, they had the yogurt, the lactospore, and they had Cinnulin PF, and then they had the combination, so they looked at a synergistic effect. And in each case, when they had the Cinnulin PF plus the yogurt, it was better than the yogurt itself. And that's on blood glucose. If we look at cholesterol, same thing. LDL, same thing. HDL, same thing. Triglycerides, same thing. Again, same thing means that it's better with the combination than it is alone. And like I said, what you get, that yogurt is the combination, so should be very good for you. And this is another thing. This is now a little different. This shows again the versatility of it. And what they did is they had a model they gave them dextrin sulfate to induce colitis. And the amount of dextrin sulfate they gave to these animals, all the ones in the control group died. The ones in the lactobacillus lactospora group, all but 10% of them died. And the ones that got the Cinnulin PF plus the lactospore probiotic, 44% of them were still alive at the end of the study. So in conclusion, I hope what I've shown you is that indeed cinnamon improves insulin sensitivity. It does it in animal studies, it does it in vitro, and it does it in human studies. Same thing is true of glucose tolerance. Same thing is true of blood lipids. Improves body composition. Now, I didn't show you much animal work on body composition, but I showed you the human study on body composition. Improves systolic blood pressure, again in human and animal studies. And it blocks tau filament formation, which we saw. In another study I didn't get a chance to talk about, they did a study where they looked at in Alzheimer's in animals, and they looked at the control animals on cognition. They looked at the animals with that had Alzheimer's induced, genetic induced Alzheimer's, and the cognition was down here. And if you took these animals that were genetically with Alzheimer's, gave them the cinnamon, they were back up to normal. So again, the only intervention was the amount of cinnamon. You're reversing something that's genetically there. And it has neuroprotective effects. We talked some about that today, but not a lot. Regulates sirtuins associated with cell function, survival, longevity, and circadian rhythms. We got studies going right now, more detailed studies on circadian rhythms, with certainly some very nice effects. It's insulin potentiating, it's antioxidant, and it's anti-inflammatory. And like I say, there are thousands of polyphenols out there, and almost all of them are antioxidants. But only a very few of them are antioxidants plus insulin potentiating, and even when you have the combination of all three, you get even less. And it has the synergistic effects I showed you with the probiotics. It's much better when you have a probiotic plus the Cinnulin PF. And then probably the most important, and I hope the reason that you're going to buy and eat more Cinnulin PF is that it works. And like I say, these are studies. Many of the products you'll see on the booth, and I don't mean to say anything bad about anybody's products, but there are dozens of studies published in peer-reviewed journals showing almost everything I showed today is published in a peer-reviewed journal, and there have been meta-analyses, and it's not one study does whatever. It's a series of studies and confirms the earlier ones, and there's at least 4 meta-analyses showing the benefits. And with that, I'll close, and I thank you very much.